Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your NFC South champions. Congratulations to the fans, every single fan, primarily those of the Carolina Panthers, that no longer have to endure this terrible football team, folks. Hey, welcome into the show. We've hit rock bottom. You know that old Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson come out, people's elbow, rock bottom, whatever it was when I was a kid growing up. Love to watch wrestling. We've hit rock bottom. Which some people say, when you hit rock bottom, that's a good thing because you're at the bottom. And they like to say, well, the only way to go is up. But not if you're having to climb Mount Everest. If the Super Bowl run back in 2015, making it to the Super Bowl was our Everest, we have plummeted so far down. When I went on to ESPN Wilmington this week, we joked that the name should be Keep Digging. Keep digging because it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. I'm just glad it's over. I'm glad it is over and that I and you and everyone else does not have to endure this, and other NFL fans. It's over, folks. We can move on to real football. Speaking of real football, I will say, as I'll plug this, that I will preview all the playoff games. I'm not going to go in depth at all. Taking a break, so just getting on there, giving you my random predictions, because that's how I want to do it. And guess who? Nolan is going to join the podcast. I guess it'll be in 2 weeks-ish. I'm going to get him on here. We're going to talk Ravens, figure out who they're going to play. They got the bye, which is good for them. Anyways, it's time to talk about this team and the abysmal display again. Shutout again for the second week in a row, folks. Oh my gosh, man. Just trying to get any and all points. Not all. Get any points. Put points on the board. It's a struggle to do anything. We had an opportunity to score. Bryce Young escapes the pocket, makes an amazing throw to a wide open DJ Chark. Heck, if DJ Chark even just goes out of bounds or gets tackled and keeps the ball, there's a good chance we at least get 3. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this team's going to put up a touchdown. No lies. But you fumble, and then we credit the fumble to the defender for making a play instead of securing the ball. But that's the story of this season. If it's going to bounce, it's going to bounce in the other team's favor, no matter what it is. That's not me saying talking about calls or anything like that. It's just the way the game has gone. I don't know. The Panthers are the first team to lose 2 games. Sorry, they didn't lose 2 games. Rephrase. Only win 2 games in the 17-game schedule. That's right. And I know it's 3 years young that we've been doing this 17-game schedule, but that's terrible, man. Let's see. The Panthers become the first team, this is from David Newton, the first team to lose 15 games in the 17-game schedule, and the 4th team in 30 years to be shut out in consecutive seasons. I think that he meant consecutive games. They are the first to be shut out in back-to-back games since 2008. And guess who? The Cleveland Browns. Going back to that touchdown, though, man, that hurt, dude. Those 7 points, 6 points, when you finish a game and you lose 9-0, you had the field goal opportunity that just didn't pan out. And I didn't expect a lot from Wright, and the conditions were what they were. No Eddie Pinheiro. You go back to Raheem Blackshear's run. Terrace Marshall Jr. is lined up, and he's lined up incorrectly, not on the line of scrimmage. Don't you hate penalties like that? I tweeted it. I'm not here to bash the NFL and the rules. The rules are the rules. People know the rules. I know the rules since I've played. That's like an elementary rule that you are taught in any level of sports to be on the line. That you have to have players on the line. You can't leave them uncovered, and he's a step back. You're supposed to check with the receiver. I mean, I guess I gave him a little bit of grief because he hasn't been out there in 4 or 5 weeks, but maybe that's the reason he hasn't been out there in 4 or 5 weeks. That was a tough day because you have 2 touchdowns scored right there. 2 touchdowns, that's 14 points, and yeah, the Bucs were driving at the end. So they likely could have scored. But at the same time, man, you beat up on Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield looks so uneasy in the pocket, getting banged around. He's injured. But kudos to him. Kudos to him for battling. Kudos to him for taking control of the division, taking control of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hats off to Todd Bowles and the job that he has done. The same way that I kind of talked about, if you listen to my Ben Johnson preview of Jared Goff going to Detroit and people writing him off, I think a lot of people would have thought the same thing with Todd Bowles taking over when Brady was gone. It felt like, oh yeah, this is not going to work out. They're going to have to find a quarterback through the draft. And now maybe they have their quarterback. And, I do think Baker's a bridge, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years. But he's proven that he can play NFL caliber football and take a team to the playoffs. And again, the Bucs that I and many folks predicted to finish last in this division finished first. First place Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It hurts, man. It hurts. The guys at the Saints podcast were ragging on me a little bit. Not ragging on me, but the Saints needed to win their game, and then we needed to beat the Bucs for the Saints to get in, and otherwise the Saints were relying on some weird stuff to happen. The weird stuff didn't happen, and they got eliminated. And hey, man, if you have not seen the clip, go out there and watch the handshake with the Falcons and the Saints at the end of that game. Falcons head coach Arthur Smith got pissed, man, because I think the Saints scored like late in the game with like under a minute to go. They were up big. And he comes out there and says, "What the F?" as they go into the handshake, to greet him all. He was so mad. And I'm with some of the folks that said they like that. Like, I love it. As a division rival, division opponent, bring on the rivalry. And then you have him apologizing in the presser after, Saints head coach, and like, don't apologize, man. Can we not have a sensitive culture in the NFL to where, at least while you're playing the game and you're going head to head and you're competing and, fighting, whatever it is, that you can kind of talk your trash and do your thing, man? Like, this is the top tier league in the entire world for football. And I listened to ESPN Wilmington this week. It's also, when we talk about football, one of the top shows, events in the entire United States for live TV, like sporting events, football sporting events. When I was sitting down the other day, I do the podcast, so there's not a lot of time for me to think about watching TV. Maybe on the weekends, maybe late at night, but all of my time, at least during football season, is spent watching live sports, and then it's promoting the podcast, getting things ready. I mean, I'm actually kind of glad, but I was just thinking about that entire flow and how football is dominating. But like, don't apologize, man. Don't apologize for that. And I know that's kind of a side tangent there. We've got a lot of things to dissect over the coming days, weeks. Is Scott Fitter officially gone? I'm going to be dropping a video here shortly about Sportsology, the firm that David Tepper hired to help in the coaching search, I believe, hopefully coaching search, and or search for a general manager. So we'll have that coming along. And I've got a ton of other videos. We've got our opponents set up for the 2023 season, 2024 season. Here I am. It's a new year, folks. The 2024 season. So all of our opponents are set. Let me go out just because I have it bookmarked. I can tell you quickly. NFC South, of course, we have the NFC East, Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, Giants. AFC West, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, Chargers. NFC West, Cardinals. NFC North, Bears. AFC North, Bengals. Oh my gosh. I'm not spending time on this show. That's a tough schedule, folks. I don't know how this team gets to 5 or 6 without a major overhaul. How do they get there? That's the number one question I've got. Bryce Young tied for most sacked quarterback in Carolina Panthers history. This Carolina Panthers offense, second worst offense, scoring offense in team franchise history. They closed out the year Where did it go? Cut off on me. Hold on 1 second. Closed out the year with 13.8 points per game, folks. 13.8. The worst scoring offense in franchise history. Oh, man, my stats are all skewed. Was the 2010 team, and I believe it was 12.3 points per game. Not good company to be in at all. Not good company to be in. And I'm going to do an analysis on the season. I mean, there's not a lot to analyze, but there were some tidbits that I took away really over this past weekend. I just started to get into some of the numbers. I was going to try to see if I could pull up a few of those. One of them having to do with the help that Bryce Young is going to need. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. I have too many tweets and people tweeting, which is a good thing. So many people liking. And that was, I'll say this. Thank you to everyone that is following, liking, staying in tune with the show, because it's a lot. And it is very appreciative. I'm starting to see some of the results pay through because y'all guys are tuning into this. I'm not going to be able to find it. It's just too much scrolling for me. So I'll pull it out and look at it another time. But what I was analyzing was a comparison of C.J. Stroud's help and weapons with that of the Carolina Panthers and how much more his receiving core helps him. That includes tight ends, running backs, compared to Bryce Young. But then so that's one tidbit. Another tidbit was diving into Bryce Young's individual stats. So some bad things. Batted balls, not a terrible thing. I think he only had 6 batted balls, not including today's stats. I don't think there was one batted, but, did have the fumble. Not batted, though. But his individual stats there, he led the league by a long shot in number of throwaways, just diving into some of his accuracy and things like that. And I put a thread of throws of some of his big time throws that are shared through social media on my channel last night, because one, hats off to CJ Stroud. I am not one of those Panthers fans that's going to bash Stroud or the Texans, because there's a lot of that's going on both sides. And I'm not doing that. Good for CJ, good for the Texans. What a win in prime time for them. But if you watch the first play of the game for CJ, the bomb touchdown, just his mechanics, they were perfect. And you start to think about the comparison between the two quarterbacks and the reports that were coming through that, hey, yeah, maybe Bryce does need to work on some mechanics and footwork. But you really notice the difference when you start to watch clip after clip after clip of Bryce when he does have really good throws, either standing on his back leg or flat-footed when he's throwing some of these deeper balls and not truly stepping in and driving the ball. And CJ Stroud just kind of put on a clinic with the way he did that in that video. Well, let's talk about this nasty box score here and probably close this episode, folks, because 9-0 season ending. There's going to be so much news to come through that we'll get you caught up when it gets there. So let me go back. 3 field goals. That's all it took. 3 field goals. Day for Bryce. 11 of 18, 94 yards. Sacked 3 times. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Did have the 1 fumble. And that fumble came after the penalty where we had scored a touchdown. I mean, you cannot, dude. I don't think if there was ever a script for this stuff, there's no way that you would be able to script it the way that it is. Baker was 20 of 32, 137 yards, sacked 3 times as well. Rushing attack, Chuba Hubbard was the leading rusher for both teams. 23 carries, 83 yards. Bryce did a little scramble, had that one nice run, and then Rashad White for the Bucs, 75 yards. Receiving, quiet day for both parties. Chris Godwin leading receiver, 6 for 51. Chark had 2 for 46, and then not a lot of production out of anyone else. The fumbles, 2 fumbles, one by Chark, one by Bryce. That is for the Panthers. Both of them, you can't win battles when you don't win the turnover battle or when you turn the ball over. Trey Palmer lost a fumble for Tampa Bay, but it's how it happens, and then they recover it because that's the way it goes. Hey, got to take a minute. I'm not doing 2 Growls, 1 Roar. I'm not doing any of those segments, as you can see, because we're 15 minutes into the video. Those segments and things are going to remain, and they're going to get fine-tuned, but I did not feel like wasting my time on that today, folks. I was like, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to record this, close out the season, and then start looking at all the other content that I got to get out there for y'all. But Derrick Brown becomes your single season record holder for number of tackles in a season by a defensive lineman, and ended up with 7 total tackles. I think he only needed 3 coming in. Ended up having a sack, another tackle for loss. Tor Gross-Matos had a sack, and Brian Burns did get 1 sack. Frankie Louvu, another solid day, and Dante Jackson. But J.C. Horn too, man. I mean, a lot of these guys, it's that time of year, folks, where we start to talk about free agency with Frankie Louvu, with Brian Burns, Amir Smith-Marset. I will post a video maybe this week, depending on how quickly I can do it, of all of the free agents that are on the roster, because we got a lot to discuss. That was really the statistical breakdown. There's not much you can get into. I mean, we averaged more yards per play than them. Passing was terrible. Rushing was terrible. The team, you kind of joke, but it does. My father-in-law was like, this is like watching a middle school football offense. And it is. You just know that they don't have, and they talked about it on the broadcast with tendencies. And I can even remember in my days in high school, college, just the game plan that went into some of these pre-games, breaking down the film. And I remember one of my years that I played, our coach had picked up on some key when every time they did this motion or did this thing, the play was coming here or here. And I listened to what he said and watched the film and practiced it, and we practiced, and sure enough, when the thing came in the game, motion across, ball's coming here, I break down, bam, make a tackle. And it's just perfect setup. And so you can only imagine at the NFL level with the technology, that's the advanced technology, film, analytics, data that they have on players and teams, how they can do that. And anyways, statistical breakdown, that's all, folks. And I think it is time to close out this episode with, a closing it out, I guess we'll say. It's been a tough year, folks. And like I said, I'm going to do a true recap of the season at a future date, because there's going to be a lot to talk about in the offseason. As I've learned, there's a lot of lulls. So that'll be something for us to go back and journey on. But for those that are still here and hanging around and that made it through this, it was a journey, folks. As I kind of highlighted in the opening, the bottom of all bottoms, the rock bottom, there may be some signs of hope coming here in the near future, but it's going to take a while to get there. And, if you are a true fan and you're dialed in and you want to endure this, I think it'll be rewarded at some point, with some wins on the field. May just not be in the timeline or the state in which we want it to be. It's going to take time to get there. All right, folks, this is Carolina Dad, and I should have said, got a little bit of a source. I'm drinking some green tea. Anyways, that is all I got, folks. We are closing out with my final recap of the 2024 season for your Carolina Panthers. Final record 2-15, worst record in all of football. That's all, folks. I will see you soon, and I'll see you shortly. Y'all have a good one. Keep